All right, hello. Welcome. It's good to see everybody. Welcome if you're joining us online. It's the week after Easter, so you all are the ones who didn't get enough church on Easter, right? I told myself I don't have time to go through the list and thank everybody who helped our Easter services happen. Because if I went through by name, it would take forever. But everybody on our tech and media and camera teams and the worship teams and our volunteers, our coffee and kids volunteers, everybody helped pull that off. But I wanted to take time real quickly just to make a shout out to two people. The first one was Sherry Brown. She's the lady who told us the story, and she did awesome. She told that story from her heart, by heart, and it was amazing. And the second is Billy Peters. He's the one who drew all of the artwork that kind of took us on the journey of the Exodus. So, Billy, if you're watching, thank you so much. That was awesome. I always say I really admire people who can do artwork like that, because I was the kid in third grade who couldn't even make the snowflake out of paper. Y'all remember that? I cut the thing and mine would just fall into like 8 different pieces of paper. So I failed art class in third grade. So it's amazing to me that people like Billy can just draw that stuff in short order, and it looks awesome. So they took us on that journey of the Exodus so that we could see that Jesus uses that journey as the template to explain what he's going to be doing as he dies, but he doesn't stay in the place of death. He leaves there and he goes into life, giving us all who trust in him the hope that we will make that journey as well, that we will not stay in the place of death, but we also make the journey to life. And now today we see in Luke chapter 24 yet another journey as 2 disciples of Jesus go down the road. Have I said journey enough for you yet? I'm not sure how it happened, but on my Facebook stories, in my Instagram feed, I just get blasted with all the little pretty cutesy quotes. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Like with the squiggly font and the pretty flowers, and they say stuff that's supposed to inspire you for life or something. And so one of the quotes I saw recently said, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. Y'all ever heard that? A guy named Ralph Waldo Emerson said that. He lived a long time ago in the 1800s, and he'd be happy to know his quotes are still popping up on my news feed. I saw another quote. It said, it was something like, you really become who you are on the road. You really become who you are on the road. The algorithm got me again. I clicked something that keeps putting these quotes in front of me to let me know that it's about the journey. And, I was thinking about those little quotes with, the cutesy little cool backgrounds and everything going on. Any of y'all posting those? No? Okay, we got one. Casey, I'm probably seeing your quotes pop up on my feed. I was thinking about those little quotes, and, I realized they kind of leave a lot out. They say you become who you are on the road. And I was thinking, well, I actually become the worst version of myself on the road. I don't know about you guys. I can say for sure, 100%, that my wife becomes the worst version of herself on the road. And she told me, still let her drive because, something exciting is always going to happen. But she told me, I told her yesterday, I was like, man, I'm going to have to talk about your, road life a little bit tomorrow. And she said, oh, that's good because you've been telling everybody I'm perfect and amazing. And that's true. She is perfect and amazing. But she doesn't want you to think she's perfect and amazing. She wants you to know that she's relatable and everybody's got issues. So I can talk to you about her life on the road. Okay, so I have seen this girl, my wife right here, rocking out to a worship song while she's driving, singing about how much God loves everybody, how he died for everybody, how we're supposed to love everybody, and then somebody cuts her off in traffic. And in the middle of that worship song, where we know the presence of God himself is in the car because the worship is rocking, she will say or shout some things that I won't tell you what she says, but just know they're not very loving at all. And I don't think the Lord would be pleased with them personally. But here's the thing. I can't blame her. I don't blame her at all because there's some idiots on the road, aren't there? Anybody ever notice that? Like, it doesn't matter if we're talking about the actual road or the road of life or even the road of our faith. There are idiots along the way. And Waldo forgot to point that out in his quote, right? When he said it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, he forgot to mention that you're going to run into a lot of idiots on your journey. Excuse my language, the Bible calls them fools, so I'm using some more modern terms. But there are some idiots on the road of our life. Maddie also likes to do this thing. I'm pretty sure she's playing a game where she sees how many potholes she can hit in a row. And I've just come to the conclusion that she's got to be hitting them on purpose because she is swerving out of the way of a perfectly flat road to hit the biggest pothole that we can find. And you all know that, yeah, there's also bumps in the road, aren't there? And there's potholes in the road. And sometimes I look at people and I'm thinking, there's potholes in the road, but you all are hitting them on purpose. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was a youth pastor for a while, and I can't tell you how many times I'd very graciously and kindly tell someone something like, hey, you know, you might not want to get too serious with him because he's 28, you're 18, and he's never had a job, and I can tell you he's not planning on getting a job. That's not in his future at all. Fortnite and Minecraft are in his future. He's told me that. He's got this all planned out. He's going to be a stay-at-home cat dad. So, you know, you may just want to put the brakes on. But after you tell somebody 4, 5, 6 times and they just keep making the same decision, I just have to conclude you're doing this on purpose, right? You're swerving out of the way to hit problems in your life. Anybody know somebody like that? You got somebody in your family where you're just convinced everybody sees this coming from a mile away. They've all told you. So I've just made the decision that you are hitting these potholes in your life on purpose. So we have idiots on the road. We got bumps and potholes on the road. But what's interesting about this story is while all that's going on in our road, on our road of life, we also find that Jesus is on the road. Jesus is on the road. That's where we find him. Our Easter service, it was titled, anybody here remember what it was called? The Day. Our Easter service was called The Day. And so I've titled this message, The Day After. What was Jesus doing after he resurrected, after he defeated death? Now, some of you who are really paying attention, really know how the story goes, you'll recognize that this story of the road that we just read isn't actually happening the day after. It's technically the day of. But y'all just got to give me a break because I can't give you a title you remember and it be chronologically accurate, okay? So we're talking about the day after, the day that Jesus rose. What's he doing? After he defeated death, after he trampled the sin, hell, and the grave, what's Jesus doing? Perhaps he's getting ready to film his Netflix documentary that shows us how resurrection happened, how it all went down. At least, surely, he's going to go to a cultural center. He's going to pop up in front of Pilate. Hey, I'm back. He's going to pop up in front of the high priest. Hey, I just wanted to let you know I'm back. He's going to get a hold of Zuckerberg. I need to get this on Facebook. I need to get this on Instagram. I'm going to tweet about it. I'm going to make a meme about it. That's what we think he should be doing, right? Get it out. He's only got 40 days. He's got 40 days to proclaim to the world that he is the Son of God and that death and the grave has no hold on him. What's he going to do? we might be a little bit surprised because Jesus is going to come out of the tomb and he's going to go on a walk. He's going to go on a little walk and he's going to catch up with two people that up to this point in the story, we don't know their name. We have never met them before. I'm thinking, Jesus, when you come out of the grave, surely you can at least go find Peter. Go find Bartholomew. I know them. But no, he's going to catch up with two people who up to this point we don't know their name, though we get the name of one of them pretty early on. His name was Cleopas. We'll call him Cleo for short because that's what all his friends called him. Because we're going on a little stroll with him, we should call him Cleo too. Jesus and Cleo. He catches up with two people on a road to a place called Emmaus. I thought I'd show you a picture. This is what they think might be the road to the place that they think might be Emmaus. See, if you go to Israel and you have a good tour guide, they will take you here and they will say, yeah, this is what we think might be the road to this town here that we think might be Emmaus. Because here's the thing, Emmaus was such an insignificant town. It's so far off the map that we don't even know where it actually is today. Can't figure out what actually is Emmaus and what actually is the road. So the best we can do is guess. Now, what I want you to see is that Jesus chased down two people that we don't know their name to a place that we don't even know where it is at. And we think that we can only find God in places that everybody recognizes. Like we think Jesus needs a shout out from Kanye and from Bieber and from Madonna for the over 40s in the room. Don't think I can't come up with a joke to come back at you in the middle of my sermon. But notice that the famous one, did y'all get that? Jesus, the name above every name, the name above Kanye, the name above Bieber. He meets two people walking towards nowhere, Emmaus. And get this, he leaves Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the place where Passover happened. Jerusalem is the place where he was proclaimed as king, where his trial had happened. And Jerusalem is the place that the promise of God, the Holy Spirit, is going to fall. Jerusalem is where it's all happening. Y'all getting this? Jerusalem is where it all went down and where it's all happening. But Jesus leaves that place to follow two previously unnamed people down a road to nowhere. I'm trying to get you to think, is it possible that we are always looking for God in the arrival? I'll see God move. I'll know that he moved when my dreams come true. I'll see God when all my hopes are realized. I'll see God when everything works out the way that I had thought it was supposed to. But is it possible that he is not the God of the arrival, but he is the God that we meet on the road? You guys are real quiet this morning. I'm trying to tell you that the perfect, flawless Son of God set out on a road to an unknown place because he is not the God of arrival, but he is the God of the first step. And he is the God of the second step. And he is the God of every step. And you all need to hear this, that he is with you every step. He's with you when you're right, and he's right with you when you're wrong. He's with you when it's all good, and he's right there with you when it's all bad. He's with you when you're moving forward in life, and he's with you when you're stuck. He's always right next to us, and with God, every step is an arrival. Y'all need to hear that? That every time I take a step, when God's with me, I've made it where I'm supposed to be. I've arrived. And when I take the next step, I've made it where I'm supposed to be because he's right with me. And here's the thing that we really need to realize that some of you may not have realized yet. He is even with you right here, right now. He is the God who left Jerusalem, where everything's going on, to follow two people that we don't know. What kind of God is that? That he will speak to you in the crowd of people. He will come to you, even though you feel like I'm insignificant. I've got to have a name. I've got to have an influence to really have God think I'm important. No, this is the God that comes to you. And here's the thing. These two that were disciples of Jesus, they're going the wrong way. Like if they had actually believed what he said, if they had actually believed that he was who he said he was, they would have stayed in Jerusalem because they would have known, oh, Jesus said he's going to rise, right? We know what he said. He said he's going to rise from the dead, so we're going to stay here and wait for him to rise from the dead, but they didn't have faith for that. The second everything went wrong, they leave Jerusalem and they start heading towards Emmaus, and what I want you to see is that God followed them to the wrong place because grace will always chase you down. He is not going to let you go. And so in Luke chapter 24, verse 15, we pick up with Cleo and his partner. Scholars think it's probably Mrs. Cleo, but we don't know for sure. Verse 15, it says, as they talked and discussed these things with each other. So they're just walking and talking about what had happened. They're walking and talking about how they had hoped Jesus was the promised king, but he'd been crucified. As they walked and talked about their broken dreams, as they walked and they were talking about the divorce, they were talking about the job loss that they'd gone through. They were talking about the struggle they're in. They're talking about the wasted relationship that they spent so much time with. They thought it was going somewhere, but it ended up not going anywhere. As they talked about the death of what they had expected to happen, who shows up? It says Jesus himself came up and walked right along with them. In the middle of all that, Jesus comes up and walks alongside them. Notice he did not ask politely. He did not say, hey, can I join you? He just comes out of nowhere and steps in right alongside them. Have you ever felt like God wouldn't leave you alone, even if you wanted him to? Like you've told yourself over and over, it's okay. And the culture around you says it's okay, it's not a big deal. And everybody else is doing it. So you should feel fine, but for some reason, you just don't feel right every time that you smoke it. Every time that you drink it. Every time that you look at it. Don't you all get real quiet on me, acting like you rode into church on your white horse and polished your halo before you got here. You don't know what I'm talking about. I will hop down off the stage and come talk to you face to face. Thanks, Kim. Kim knows. But see, God comes and he walks. I'm not really going to hop off the stage. I'll hurt myself. He walks right alongside them, whatever they're going through, in their struggle, in their temptation, in their pain, in their sorrow. Jesus is walking right along with them. But look what it says. But they were kept, verse 16, they were kept from recognizing him. They didn't see it was Jesus. That's what I want you to think about today. Are you in the middle of everything going on in your life? The pain in your marriage, the pain in your body, the struggle with your job. And are you missing resurrection that's right in front of you? You're not even recognizing Jesus when he's right next to you in the middle of all of that. Now this part, this is funny. If you all think the Bible is boring, I'll just probably tell you you're probably boring. Because this part is funny. Luke chapter 24, verse 17. Jesus comes up and he asks them, what are you all talking about? You know Jesus knows what they're talking about, right? That's why it's funny. What are you all talking about? And they stood still, their faces downcast. They were sad. Again, if I was Jesus and I had just come out of the grave, I don't want to go hang out with a bunch of sad people, right? I want to find the party. I want somebody to pop open a bottle, to throw the confetti, a bottle of grape juice, right? But he comes to those first who are brokenhearted, whose face are downcast because a broken and contrite heart. God is near. And they begin to tell him, one of them named Cleo. He says to Jesus, are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days? Jesus, do you not know what's going on? Anybody ever said that to Jesus? God, do you not know what's happening? And so Jesus nods his head. He says, what? What are you talking about? What things? About Jesus of Nazareth, they replied. He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. Now, there are some religions and belief systems out there that will tell you Jesus was a great man. He was a good teacher. He may have even been a prophet. But you should not believe he was God because he himself never even claimed to be God. And what you should tell them is you should say, you're right, he did a lot worse than that. He actually claimed to hold the name of the personal God of Israel. What I mean is Jesus wasn't just going to leave it to this vague idea of God, like whatever you think God is, that's what I am. No, he said, I am. When Jesus says I'm God, he's not saying I'm some God you could think of. He's not saying I'm the universe. He's not saying I'm energy. He's not saying I'm Zeus. He's saying I am. I am. And I gave a message on this about a year and a half ago, and I tried to go back and find it, and would you believe it? I couldn't find it. And I even looked through my own notes, and I couldn't find it. So if somebody out there finds this message on our YouTube channel, you will get a prize next week. Go talk to Jen after service if you do that. But in this message, we did a little Hebrew study on how the name Yahweh, which is the name of God, that is the God we serve. We sang about it. Do y'all remember that song we just sang? Yahweh. That name most likely means he is who he is. Whatever God is, he is who he is. Yahweh. That's what we call him. He is who he is. However, when God is talking to Moses, when he reveals his name, God doesn't say, I am Yahweh. God says, I am Ehweh. That means I am who I am. You see the difference? Ehweh, I am what I am. But we call him Yahweh. He is who he is, because it doesn't make any sense for me to say I am that I am when I'm talking about him. First person, Ehweh. Third person, Yahweh. You all didn't know you were coming to get a grammar lesson this morning. But what happens is Jesus says to the religious leaders when they ask who he is, he says, before Abraham was, I am Ehweh. And they pick up their stones to kill him because in that day, the Jewish people wouldn't even say Yahweh because it was too holy to even say Yahweh. It was too holy to even say he is who he is. And here comes Jesus and he's saying, I am. And what I want you to see about this story is that Jesus really proclaimed himself to be Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He is the great I am. He said of himself, I am, I am. And these two disciples of Jesus are now calling, I am, he was. Y'all see that? They're calling the great I am, he was. He was a prophet. He was powerful in word and deed. And what I'm wondering this morning, are you missing the God who is because you're stuck in what was? Are you missing he who is because you're stuck in he was? I feel like I could give this sermon every week for the rest of my life, and we still wouldn't get it. That we are stuck in he was when we are serving the God who is. The women, they went to the tomb to look for his body because he was dead. And the angel says, why are you looking for the living among the dead? Why are you looking for a living God in a dead tomb? Why are you looking for a living God in a dead relationship? Why are you looking for a living God in a dead dream? Why are you looking for a living God in dead religion? You know how many people come to church and go through the motions, try to be good people, think they're going to find the living God in a dead place? Y'all are being real quiet on me. I'm going to just pretend you're paying attention. You're really deep in thought. And so Cleo continues on. He's going to tell Jesus what happened to Jesus. Remember, they still don't recognize who he is. And he says, the chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. They handed him over. Now that Greek word for handed him over is paradidomi. Can you all try to say that? I'll break it up for you. Paradidomi. 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 Y'all got it? Let's try it one more time. Paradidomi. I want you to be sure you have that word so that the next time somebody comes up to you and says, where do you go to church? And then you tell them, and they lift their nose at you and they say, oh, you go to that rock and roll church. You go to that church with the drum set and the guitars. And we heard about that the guy talking wore a leather jacket on Easter. And we know they let the girls show their arms there. And people say weird stuff. You go to that new Margarita church. We heard about that place. The next time somebody's telling you something like that, you just hit them in the face with some Greek. You say paradidomi. That'll shut them up. They won't have any idea what you're talking about. You don't need to know what it means. They don't know what it means either, but it'll get them to be quiet. Just hit them in the face with some Greek. Y'all got it? Let's try it one more time. Good. But what it does mean is it means handed him over. If you caught our Good Friday service online, I talked briefly about how there is this clear sequence of Jesus being handed over. Judas handed him over to the Sanhedrin, paradidomi. The Sanhedrin, the religious leaders, they handed him over to Pilate, paradidomi. Pilate handed him over to Herod, paradidomi. Herod handed him over to the crowd. The crowd handed him over to be crucified. And so these disciples recount how he was handed over. And then look what happens. They hand over their hope. Verse 21. We had hoped that he was the one to redeem Israel. We had hoped, but now our hope is gone. I had hoped that I'd be further along in life by now. I had hoped that I'd be married by the time I was 27 years old. I had hoped that the medicine would work. I had hope. But now I've handed over my hope. And then he says, what is more? It is the third day since all this took place. Now, Jesus does a pretty good job here at keeping his mouth shut for a little while, because I wouldn't have been able to hold it in. Because you all know, good thing I'm not Jesus. Jesus does it the right way. Because you all know, Jesus had been telling everybody from the beginning, hey, this isn't going to look good on Friday. This is not going to go well on Friday. I've laid this all out for you. Have you not heard Friday is not going to look good. But in 3 days, this temple is going to be rebuilt. In 3 days, something's going to happen. Hey, Cleo, you said you were listening to me. You're a disciple. You're following me. Do you not remember? Things aren't going to look good. But hope is coming. I'm wondering, how often do we need to hear this message? As I was working on it this week, I was like, yeah, I'm Cleo, because I do this all the time. The second something doesn't look good, I wonder, can I hope? I wonder, is God going to come through? Even though over and over and over again, I've been told it's not going to look good on Friday. But resurrection's coming. Over and over and over again, I know I'm going to go through stuff. There's going to be a struggle. But God's with me. He's going to work it out. How often do we have to hear that message before we get it? Before we believe? And so Jesus listens to Cleo tell him what had happened and how now it's the third day. And then he listens to him tell him, the women, they went to the tomb and it's empty, but we still don't have hope. We don't know what's happening. And Jesus finally, in verse 25, speaks up. He said to them, how foolish you are, and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Y'all need to preach this part of the message to yourself every day. When you stop believing God's coming through for you. When you hand over your hope. You need to be, I'm not going to say it to you because I'm being nice to you today. But you need to look yourself in the mirror and say, how foolish am I that I don't believe what has been spoken, what God is going to do. And Jesus says, did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory? Don't you know suffering comes before glory? Has the story not explained that to you so far? The Messiah enters his glory after the Messiah suffers. Verse 27, beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. Remember, at this point, they still do not know who Jesus is. They have Jesus standing right next to them, and they do not recognize him. We have Jesus standing right next to us, and we do not recognize him. We have Jesus standing right in the middle of our life, and we don't even see him. Why do we miss Jesus? It's because we often only recognize him. We only interpret who he is based on our preferences, based on our priorities, and based on our perspectives. We see this happen all the time. In church, people will only see Jesus when he appears as they prefer. Like, I prefer the story that tells me that I will not go to hell when I die. That's good. I don't want to go to hell when I die. But we hear that, and Jesus now becomes my ticket out. I like the story. I prefer the message that if I say the magic words, I am covered and do not have to worry about eternity. No matter how I live, Jesus has me covered. I prefer that story. That sounds good. I prefer the Jesus that I'm told fixes all my problems. I prefer the Jesus that I'm told if I follow him, I will be healthy and wealthy and never have any struggles in my life. But what happens to your preference of who Jesus is when the bank account is getting low, when your body's not feeling great? Are you just going to say, well, Jesus isn't here? Jesus isn't in this. Jesus isn't with me because I only see him in what I prefer. We often interpret him according to our priorities, what's important to me. Well, I know God is working when he's working in my career because that's what's important to me. I know God is working when he's working in my marriage because that's what's important to me. When I see my marriage going well, that means God's blessing my life. That's what's important to me. But what about the fact because those things are important to God. But what about the fact that Jesus shows us that he also prioritizes the poor and the weak and our enemy? Are you going to miss him when he's working in those things that aren't that important to you because you only recognize him in the things that are important to you? And we miss him when we interpret him according to our perspectives. When it's just about how I see Jesus, I only see Jesus when he lines up with how I see Jesus. Many people think Jesus is a great teacher. He's a great example to follow. That's my perspective of him. That sounds good to me. I'll do my best to be like him. I'll do my best to follow his ways. But see, your perspective of him is different than who he said he was. And here's the thing. If your perspective of Jesus is just that he is a great example to follow, you will fail. Do y'all know that? The point of Jesus is he shows you this is what a human being is meant to be. Perfect relationship with God, perfect love going out towards others. And Jesus lives this life that shows us we've never been that. As a human, I've never been what a human is meant to be. And if he's just an example to follow, I will never meet that example. But he says that he is not just a human who lived a good life, but he is the Son of God who became a human. And in him, there is actually the power to become like him, not by your striving, not by your efforts, not by your good works, but by his Spirit. See, and my perspective of him has to include that. It has to say, yes, I want to be like Jesus, but he's not just an example to follow. He actually is God, and his Spirit empowers me, and he's actually in charge. People don't like to hear that somebody else is in charge. I don't know if I like that perspective of Jesus. I want to be in charge. I want to decide what I do. We interpret him according to our preferences, our priorities, and our perspectives. And what happens is we don't even recognize him when he's right next to us. And Jesus makes it very clear. In this passage in Luke 24, Peter will make it clear again in Acts chapter 3 and Acts chapter 11. And Paul will reiterate it in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, that I do not recognize Jesus according to my preferences, according to my priorities, or according to my perspectives, but he is only interpreted according to the Scriptures. That's what they tell you. If you want to see Jesus, you want to know him more, you want to understand him, it will be according to the Scriptures. That's not a very popular thing to say today. It doesn't sound like an all-inclusive thing to say. You're telling me it's got to be according to this book? There's a lot of books out there. You're telling me it's got to be according to this story? There's a lot of stories out there. And I'm telling you, I'm not telling you that. Jesus is telling you that. He explained to them what was said in all the Scriptures. Paul says that he died and he rose again. Not just according to some random event, but he died and he rose again, 1 Corinthians chapter 15, according to the Scriptures. And so hopefully here, every Sunday at New Wine Church, but maybe especially coming out of Easter, we're beginning to see, oh, Jesus fits in and he fulfills this storyline, this world, this culture that he stepped into. And we need to see that actually being a follower of him means that I am invited into that story, which is kind of a weird story sometimes because it's got a talking snake in it, and it's got lambs that are sacrificed. It's got prophets that lay naked in the street, right? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But this is the story Jesus steps into. This is the story I am invited into. It's not that Jesus hops out and comes into my story. You see the difference? I'm invited in to his story. And if I'm a part of his story, that's where salvation is found. Alistair McIntyre, who is a Christian philosopher, he said this: I can only answer the question what I am to do. Anybody ever wonder what you are supposed to do? What's the meaning of life? What am I here for? He says, I can only answer the question, what am I to do, if I can answer the prior question of what story do I find myself a part of? How y'all doing? So Jesus explains the story to them. They have the best Bible study ever, I'm sure. He takes them through Genesis, through the end of the Old Testament, how it all comes to its culmination in him. Verse 28, it says, as they approached the village to which they were going, as they were getting to where they were supposed to be going, Jesus continued on as if he were going farther. See you, Cleo. Looks like you made it to where you were trying to get to. I'm going to head on. Verse 29, but they urged him, no, stay with us, for it's nearly evening. The day, hey, there it is. Y'all remember that? The day is almost over. So Jesus went in to stay with them. And when he was at the table with them, he took bread. Does this all sound familiar to y'all? Maybe you were here at the Passover service. We've gone on a little journey over the last several weeks. Jesus is back at the table. He takes the bread that he said was his body, that would be broken, that would be bruised, that would suffer. He took the bread, he blessed it, broke it, and began to give it to them. And then watch this. Then their eyes were open, and they recognized him. When he broke the bread, they saw it was Jesus. When they remembered about his body that suffered, that was broken, that was beaten, they saw it was Jesus. What did they see as he broke the bread? Did they remember what he had said? Had they heard what he had said at the Last Supper? When he broke the bread. Look at my hands. Y'all see my hands? What did they see as he broke the bread? As he broke it, they saw who he was because they saw his wounds. Did y'all hear that? They saw who he was in what he suffered. Sometimes you see him more in the broken places than you see him in the blessed places. You all getting the point of this message today? That I see him more in my hurt. I see him more in my broken heart than I see him when everything is working out the way I wanted it to. And I should have seen it all along because the scriptures tell us that he is close to the brokenhearted, that he is near in the suffering, that he is near in the pain, that he is right there. See, but they had missed him all along because they were looking for a glorified Messiah, right? We're missing him all along because we're looking for the God in the destination. We're looking for the God in the dream. But really, he's the God in every detour of our life. He's the God on the road with us. We're missing him because we're looking for the God in all the dramatic stuff. When something big happens in my life, that's where he's at. But we're missing the fact that, no, he's the God in just the details. Notice he's right there as they're just walking, as they're going through their life, as they're driving their kids, as they're smacking them on the way to wherever they're going. He's the God right there. Would you all stand with me this morning? As we get ready to pray and worship, I think many of us in this room, I'll include myself in this, but we need to pray this prayer, this real simple prayer, just says, God, open our eyes. God, open our eyes. We need to recognize you. We need to recognize you in our hurt. We need to recognize you in our struggle. We need to see that you are with us. Don't let us be people who miss you when you're right in front of us. This story in Luke, for sure, Luke is doing this on purpose. You may have noticed this road that he talks about seems to line up pretty well with our lives as people who come to know Jesus. That I was just walking along through my life, and out of nowhere, Jesus popped up. And I didn't know exactly what was going on, but as things began to be explained and I began to understand and the Spirit talked to me, at one moment, I recognized it was him. Luke does that on purpose. Do y'all know that? He writes that story on purpose. If you feel like, hey, that lines up with my life too well, that's because it's not a coincidence. He wants you to see yourself on this road with Jesus. And right when they think they had a handle on him, I recognize it. I see it. I've got it. I understand it. I've been in church 20 years. I got it. Jesus, I know. I've got you figured out. I know what you look like. I've got a handle on you. Then the Bible says, they opened their eyes and recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. The moment you think you got him all figured out, the moment you think you know enough, you've learned enough, figured it all out about Jesus, he's going to show you, no, you still don't have a hold on who he really is. You still don't have a hold on him. There's more. He's got more for us, but the good news is he's with us on that road the whole way. So would you bow your head and close your eyes? And if you're in this place this morning and you're saying, I am in a broken place, I've been there a long time and I've been waiting to arrive, been waiting to get to where I think I'm supposed to be. I've been waiting for all my hopes and dreams to come true. Now, this message is for you. Stop waiting. Start recognizing God is with you right where you are at. Don't miss him in the middle of everything that's going on in your life, thinking you're going to find his blessing, going to find his joy, going to find his salvation at some destination, at some arrival. He's with you on the road, and you'll find him on the road. When you hit a pothole, you'll see he's right next to me. He felt that pothole too. He's not far. He's with me every step of the way. He's with me on every detour. He's with me in every detail. He's with me in every struggle. He's right there with me in every failure. And so if that's you this morning, you've been looking for God in what we might say all the wrong places. But you haven't thought to look for him in the suffering. You haven't thought to look for him in the wound, in the heartbreak, in the pain. This morning, just say this prayer to yourself. God, open my eyes. God, open my eyes to see Jesus right here walking alongside me, to see the wounded one, to see the suffering Messiah who is here right with me in the middle of it all. Quit looking to the past. God, we proclaim, we believe you are not in the tomb. You are not back there in what was, but you're on the road. You're on the journey. God, we proclaim, we believe you are not found in religion, in dead routines and traditions, but we find you in the relationship. where you walk with us and you talk with us every day, every moment. Open our eyes. Open our eyes. We thank you that none of us have arrived. None of us have a handle on you. None of us fully, completely see who you are. We're all on this journey discovering you together, Jesus. But help us not to miss you on that road. Help us not to miss you on that journey. This journey to life, this journey to promise, this journey to hope. God, we thank you. This is the good news. God is the God on the road, but he's also got something great awaiting for us when we finally arrive. And we will arrive one day. And then the journey will continue on into eternity. So as I said earlier, that'll just be another step where every step is an arrival. And we will continue to grow in him and know him more. We thank you for that, God. We thank you that there is always more for us to discover. We commit today to recognize that is who you are and to not hand over our hope. Anybody in this place committed to say, you know what, I am not going to hand over my hope. I have heard this message this morning. I've heard it 1,000,000 times, and I may hear it 1,000,000 times more, that things do not look great on Friday. That is reality. Things do not look good on Friday, but I know resurrection is coming. I trust my God. And so no matter how much the pressure is, I will not hand over my hope, because my hope is standing right next to me. No matter what comes my way, no matter what life throws at me, Jesus is my hope, and he is alive. He is alive. Do y'all hear me? He is alive, and he is walking right with me. Speak that to our hearts this morning, Holy Spirit. Let us walk out of this place knowing that as we go through this week, Holy Spirit, Jesus is alive. And he's more than alive. He's alive and right with me. He's with us right now. And so if you believe that, if you decided I'm not handing over my hope, Jesus is my hope, then know he's in this room with us right now. And so let's join together. Let's sing to him. Let's worship him who is our living hope.